What is up, YouTube people? It's RareTotem bringing you my second episode of Drunk Discount Guides. For this one, I chose two things. For one, to release this one a bit earlier than I intended because of all of the outcry that I've seen on forums and such lately and in the games myself. And two, because I really like this guy and I want people to start playing him properly, because so many times I've seen people play Kleese and just basically they're a bullet sponge. They die constantly, don't know what they're doing, so hopefully this guide will help anyone who's interested in playing this guy or seeing him played a different way than maybe you play him. Now, what I meant about the outcry is simply Kleese counters Marquise. Have you ever had a match when you played against a Marquise and all they did was stand in the back shooting at your sentry the entire time? I have too. And if you're like me, when you see someone doing that, especially if you're winning, you feel a little, what's the word?
Disappointed!
Yeah, that. Thanks, Herc. Basically, it sucks. I see it all over the place. Everybody says, Marquise sucks, it's annoying, it's cheese, it's bullshit. Well, Kleese is the answer to that. Now you may be asking yourself, well, how? Well, first let's take a look at his abilities, and I'll talk a little bit more in depth about that, and then show you guys a little bit of what Kleese can do against a Marquise to make his life meaningless. First, you have his passive, which is his battle chair. He gets higher shield than most characters do per level, which is awesome. His passive also allows him to do some pretty funny acrobatics, albeit very, very slow looking, but still hilarious to watch every single time. It allows him to do extended jumps now. He has about 20 energy, and you can do several jumps. When you do is you jump, you hold the jump button, and you will glide in the air or hover, depending on whatever direction you're traveling in. You'll continue in that direction for a few seconds before falling back to the ground. However, you can keep activating that skill as long as you have energy, and you could do some pretty funny things with it floating. Here are some examples of such, of me crossing the entire ravine from opening to opening across the middle map in Incursion. Pretty crazy to do. There's some other ones going on as well. It's so funny to see that happening, and so annoying, I can only imagine. So annoying to watch a Kleese fly away from you and you can't do anything about it, especially if you're melee, because you just can't reach the guy. All you can do is watch helplessly as I go all the way back to my base, heal up, and come right back in your face and be annoying as hell. Now, going to his abilities, we have his first, which is Energy Rift. Energy Rift, you can spawn 3 of them at once. There is a Helix option that lets you get a 4th later on, and I'll talk about that more in depth in a minute. But you get 3 rifts. Every 3 seconds, they do a little attack where they will replenish shields of your allies by 83, or do 83 damage to any enemies around. Really awesome. If you have all 3 in an area like that, all of them will pop, and they will all deal a massive amount of AoE damage if you can get all 3. The weakness with that is that you have to take quite a bit of time to set all of those up, and they can be shot down relatively quickly if the enemy team focuses them, as well as any kind of NPCs or such, especially in PvE, but he is awesome for that. His second ability is Energy Mortars. He shoots 6 mortars, dealing low damage, but they can stack up pretty high if you hit consecutively. The nice thing about this is that it can melt shields. Your level 1 ability we'll talk about in a moment. It goes a little bit more in depth for your Energy Mortars. His ultimate is kind of strange, but it's amazing for setting up team fights. He does a little black hole, it's an area of effect, and after a moment, everything around that in that area gets sucked into the center of it. They get dealt damage, and it's awesome for setting up with like an Arendi. You launch that down, and all she has to do is throw her Shadowfire Pillar and watch the whole team melt. So let's take a look at his Helix right here, and we'll talk about what options I choose. I do not have, you might notice, I do not have him maxed out like I did with Oscar Mike. I wanted to rush this out as quickly as possible, and I don't care to max every single character out first, as long as I get that full Helix tree. So I'm going to be going over his Helix options to show them off to you guys, and let you know what I usually go in my matches. And normally, between PvE and PvP, there's really not much difference that I tend to go. I pretty much play Kleese the same in every game mode, usually. So level 1, we have a Mortar option, which replenishes shield, or Shocking Pulse, which your Energy Rifts will do more damage to shields. I usually go more damage to shield, just to keep the enemies low, and It's really great when I'll talk about it a little bit later when you get your network, because it'll just completely take out shields within one pulse will take them out. Your level 2, it's another mortar skill mutation. We have one that will slow enemies for 3 seconds if they're hit. The other one is a bit situational. I don't really like to use this one a lot, but it saps Kleese's entire shield, and that gets transferred to damage for the mortars, which can be very hard hitting, especially if an enemy takes every single hit from the mortars and you have a full shield. Now, it's very risky because Kleese is pretty fragile and he's a huge, easy target to kill, and if he has no shield, then he's pretty much out of luck. However, there's a later skill on in the game where if you get a kill with your mortars on a monster, your shield will immediately recharge back up. So in PvE, I like to use it sometimes to where if there's, little small thrall around somewhere like that I know I could kill easily with a set of mortars, I go ahead and do that, and then as soon as they're dead, my shields come right back. Otherwise in PvP, I wouldn't really recommend it so much because you'll get focused down pretty quick as soon as that shield disappears. Level 3, this is where things get pretty fun. You get your first mutation, and this one's kind of situational as well, but I tend to go that one the most in PvP. Instead of having infinite energy bullets that Kleese fires at a constant rate, you can change to doing a focused charge shot. Now this thing it has drawbacks, but it's very, very rewarding when you hit. I mean, very rewarding. This thing can 3-shot thumper turrets, anything I could jump with Kleese into the enemy base, take some pot shots at their stuff, and jump right back out and get into the fight in the mid lane. And they'll have to go ahead and rebuy that stuff or just leave it be. And if they do buy it, I'll just go ahead and start punishing it again. The problem is, it can be difficult to hit, especially against fast-moving opponents, maybe someone like Melkar Caldarius. If you miss your shots and they keep firing at you, you're screwed, you will die. So, if you're playing Kleese and you're going that option, it's usually best to stay in the back and try to snipe with it as opposed to getting in the mix. If you find yourself face-to-face with someone, if you're not very good at shooting it, sometimes, in the fray of things, you kind of lose them and it's hard to tag them with that. So it'll probably get you killed. Other than that, the shock taser I'll go sometimes for PvE. It lets your alternate attack, which is a constant taser, attack another person. It's so-so, but typically I like to just go the mutation on this one and try to get better with it. Level 4 is where things dramatically change for Kleese. His biggest weakness is his early game sucks. I mean, it sucks. But once you hit level 4, things change. You have your charge shot, which does a shit ton of damage, and then you have Rift Network. Now, I don't know if this was intentional or if it's a bug, but as soon as you upgrade Rift Network, the casting range for your energy rifts dramatically increases. It seems broken to me and not intentional for it to do this, but right now it does. Just look at the difference here from casting it at level 3 to casting it at level 4. That is insane, insane. They won't even notice what's happening. You get so many kills with this unintentionally or assists. You can just throw this way in the back, and this is first step into ruining Marquise's day are these two abilities. You use the charge shot. One charge shot from that will take out his entire shield plus a little tick of his health, and he will immediately have to retreat. He'll get scared. Then you have your Rift Network, which allows you to spawn stuff way in the back. So if you have a Marquise on their ramp being annoying or on top of the garage or somewhere, chances are all you have to do is just drop one of your energy rifts, it'll start dealing damage to him, and he'll start freaking out, having to focus that thing or reposition himself. Either way, it'll buy you time. Time for what? Well, if you don't know, Energy Rift can replenish the sentry's shield. Hallelujah, that is correct. The energy shield for the sentries can be replenished by Kleese. So, as you can hear, that same sound of the you know that Marquise is taking pot shots at your guy. All you have to do, drop energy rifts on your sentry. Every 3 seconds, it'll heal him up a bit. You drop multiple ones, it'll heal up more. Now, they heal every 3 seconds. Marquise will be constantly attacking it, so he can outdamage the heal. However, he has to continually do that in order to outdamage the healing. So all you have to do is use a charge shot on him, or throw one of your network rifts over at him, and he will have to lose his focus on your sentry and focus on either running from your shots or taking out your rift at first. And that buys your sentry's time to get his shield back up, so you don't have to continually worry about an annoying-ass Marquise just taking out its shields. And as soon as you get your network, it increases the amount of shields that they replenish or take dealing damage. So as soon as you get that, you don't have to worry about Marquise anymore. These two options right here, Marquise is out of the game. You don't have to worry about him. Just take pot shots at him if he's standing still trying to snipe at your sentry. And you can also just backdoor, since you can do your jump into their base, you could just do the same cheap shit he does. So, you know, what better way to beat an asshole than to play the oldest asshole in the game. Level 5, you get some chair abilities here. Now, these are kind of situational, but honestly, I always go the don't call it a heal chair ability. It gives 120 health per second to your teammates, which is awesome. You don't have to do anything. All they have to do is just stand near you, and their health is going to come right back up. It is amazing. This is one of the reasons why he's so good at pushing and just maintaining control, and one of the reasons why he's so territorial as his attributes state, because he can just dominate a push, keep his teammates alive, keep their shields up, and just push, push, push. His other mutation is one that gives you a little bit more energy, so if you want to float around a little bit more, you can do that. You might get 1 or 2 more jumps, I think, maybe just 1 out of that. I don't really find it too much use out of that, since 3 is more than enough. His other one is pretty funny to use. I don't really care for it so much, but if you have melee people and they're causing you problems, constantly getting in your face, you could bait them with your surprise ability, in which case your shield will explode, dealing a certain amount of damage to them. And if they're pretty low from fighting you, then they're gonna die, which is pretty funny to see that happen. But that's very situational, and I almost always go to help the team out. Your next ability, you have your next mutation for cooling down your rift ability. It gives you 33% less cooldown time, which is pretty cool, but I always go bulk savings to give you a 4th rift. As I mentioned before, you start with 3, this gives you 4, and I highly recommend going that every time, because now you have more options. It may not seem like it, but instead of just having 3 in a triangle formation that you would normally do, you could have 2 double formation energy rifts. So you can have some protecting your sentry, and then you could be offensive with the other 2 if you want. Or you could plop all 4 down on their enemy sentry and watch its shield start melting every couple seconds. You don't even have to do anything else. You basically just set it and forget it. You don't have to worry. As long as those things are up, a lot of people don't pay attention to them. So if you're playing against an enemy Kleese, it's a good idea to make sure that your sentry is not taking any kind of damage, if they didn't put any kind of energy shield or energy rifts on that. Level 7, another mortar ability mutation. His mortars will now bounce several times before exploding, or they recharge his shields immediately on a kill. Like I mentioned before, you could use that with the ability that depletes his shields once he uses it. It's a good combination for that, make his damage really high on that ability. Or now he could fire all the mortars at the same time. Typically, I usually just go for the one that recharges my shield, so when I'm using it against farming creeps, if I'm taking shots from a Marquise or somebody harassing me, I can just kill the creeps and get my shield back immediately. I don't like using the bouncing mortars, because if you watch my Oscar Mike video, that kind of ruins the DPS aspect of it, where it won't be reliable when they explode on hit. All of them firing at the same time is okay, but someone can easily dodge all of them, and then there goes your DPS. At least with the normal mortars, you can lead targets with it, and you can still maybe get some hits on it. The level 8 ability is his shields. Now it says 0 on there. I don't know what the heck's going on with this right now, but you get, I think, like 300 extra shield strength. So I almost always go the extra shields. Level 9 is a toss-up. Your energy rifts are pretty easy targets to kill. If your enemies are focusing them pretty quickly and frustrating you, go with the maximum health on them. It makes it a little bit longer for them to take them out and have to focus on them a little bit more. If it's not a problem for you and you just want to deal more damage, go for the pulse time reduction. Now that 33% is pretty huge. As you know, it takes every 3 seconds for those rifts to pulse. Getting this ability reduces that to 2 seconds, so you'll be doing way more damage than you would be normally without that. So this one is up to you. I really go either way, depending on how I'm feeling. This is probably the most up in the air one that I come across. Level 10, you get your ultimates. Now you can either do an overshield for your team, you can do damage on any of your rifts that are in the area of effect of the black hole, and the final mutation that he has is the pulling time for the black hole is reduced by a large amount. Now I usually either go the overshield or the reduced pull time, particularly because I don't want my rifts to get blown up. They do enough damage on their own, and normally they stay on the field. I usually like to help out my team by giving them an overshield if they're in the middle of a fight. I usually just drop it right near where they're all at. They get the overshield, enemy team gets damaged, everyone wins. So that's it for the Helix tree for Kleese, and I talked a little bit about Marquise and how to deal with him. To go over some of his gear, some of the gear that I like to run on him. Now, of course, everybody has their own stuff, so mine's not going to be the same as yours. But typically, I like to go with shield recharge, and then I go with some damage on him. But I also like to go with health as well. So anything that boosts his survivability and more damage is what I try to go for. Skill damage will increase the damage of his rifts, so if you have some high skill damage items, then by all means go ahead and use those. But typically any kind of shield recharge, any kind of skill or attack damage increase, and any survivability items are great on him. Alright guys, well, that concludes this episode of Drunk Discount Guides on Kleese. I hope you all enjoy it. I hope you all use this information to finally put an end to the reign of terror that Marquises are apparently having in Incursion. Also, this strategy works pretty well too in Meltdown as well. He's still pretty fun to use in that, and a little bit harder because he's such a big target, but you can still play him effectively as long as you position yourself properly. That's the biggest thing that a lot of Kleeses don't do, is position themselves properly. They run out, charge in front lines, he should be played in the back. He has far enough range, even if it might not be intentional. He has far enough range to be very effective and not have to be in the mix of things for too often. So good luck to you guys out there on the battlefield. I'll see you next time in my next video.